Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we are going to be making a holiday feast for my little family. We had 3 Thanksgivings that were absolutely wonderful, but I thought it would be fun if we could make a Thanksgiving for not a huge crowd. So just my little family, and we're gonna do some fun twists on what you would think for a holiday. This could be for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. I've got 4 recipes in front of me right now, and we're gonna tackle them all today because we are gonna enjoy this feast for dinner tonight. So the first thing I'm gonna start on, the first recipe, I have 4 printed out, is we are going to make a chocolate cake that is filled. The middle layer is a cheesecake, if you can believe that or not. I saw this recipe and had to make it. So we're gonna get the cake going first because clearly that's going to need to bake and then it's going to need to cool before we can decorate it. So in my mixer, I'm gonna start with the cheesecake layer, and we're gonna put 4 packages of cheesecake into our mixing bowl. And then we're gonna make a stuffed turkey breast, and that's gonna have cream cheese in it as well, and cranberries and some spinach, and I think it's gonna be a fun twist on a holiday centerpiece. The final 2 recipes are from the garden. It's going to be a Parmesan carrot. That was a contender for my family's Thanksgiving, but we ended up making the Chipotle honey carrots instead, and so I want to make the Parmesan crusted ones today to give them a good try. And then we are going to do a potato. We're either gonna do mashed potatoes or Hasselback potatoes. I haven't decided yet. Now we're gonna add 1 2/3 cup of sugar, and I'm gonna beat that together until smooth. I'm gonna get the oven preheated real quick before we keep going so that it's gonna be preheated for us to 350 degrees. I will link all these recipes down below as well if you wanna give them a try. We only have a few more ingredients we need to add to the cheesecake filling mixture, and that is 1/4 cup of cornstarch, or in my case, I happen to have tapioca starch. Now I'm gonna add 2 eggs. Tablespoon of vanilla or more, and 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream.
Friend, this is by far one of the best desserts I have ever made, hands down. When I saw the picture of this, I knew I had to try it. And I have to tell you, the combination of the chocolate cake with the cream cheesecake and cheesecake, basically chocolate cake with cheesecake, so delicious. And this cheesecake recipe, the base of it, is probably the best cheesecake base I have ever had. And then the fudge frosting. So we do frost this cake, but not with traditional frosting. It's a fudge frosting. Absolutely incredible. It'll probably become a holiday tradition from now on.
I'm gonna scrape the sides of the bowl and make sure I get to the bottom of the bowl and beat it for about 3 minutes or until fully incorporated and smooth. This is one of the prettiest cheesecake batters I have ever seen. It's so silky smooth. It probably helped that I had everything at room temperature. Sometimes I plan ahead, sometimes I don't. And it worked out perfect that while that filling was beating together, we were able to get our parchment paper cut out for our cake pans and for our cheesecake pan. Now, one thing I did not realize when I chose this recipe is I believe my cheesecake pan here is an 8-inch cheesecake pan, and my 2 cake pans are 9-inch. And so my middle layer is gonna be a little bit smaller than my top and bottom layer, which is probably a good thing. That'd be better, I think, than a 9-inch cheesecake pan and 2 8-inch cake pans, but we'll just make it work. It'll be just fine. So I do need to spray my parchment, and that does help the parchment stick. I'm just preparing my cake pans at the same time since I'm going to be needing those in just a minute once we make the cake layer, which looks really easy as well. We are going to bake our cheesecake in a bain-marie, so we need to wrap it in 2 layers of foil. I have my roaster pan in my oven that's filled with water that's hot, and we're going to put our cheesecake that's wrapped in foil. Okay, I eyeballed that perfectly. I was worried I may have put a little too much water in there, but that looks good. I'm gonna get this into the oven carefully, and we're gonna close it and let that bake. We are officially on our way to our holiday feast. So I've got the middle layer of the cheesecake or the cake done. The reason we didn't have to make a graham cracker crust is because the bottom layer is chocolate cake and the top layer is chocolate cake. And that's why I really wanted to make sure I put parchment paper down in my springform pan so that it can release easily from that pan so we can use it as the middle layer of this cake. So now I just rinsed out my bowl, got everything kind of rinsed off. Let's make the cake portion of this recipe. Now I need to find my recipe. There it is. It's under my cake pans. This cake looks like it's gonna come together really easily. It just says measure everything directly into the bowl, so super easy. This recipe does not give weight measurements, so we're gonna measure everything out with cups. So we need to start with the dry ingredients first. That's what it says to do. So we're gonna put 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour into our mixing bowl. This recipe calls for both baking powder and baking soda, so I'm gonna start with the baking powder, and now I'm gonna get the baking soda in here. My baking soda is kind of lumpy, so I'm gonna put it in my hand first so I can get the lumps out. Now we're gonna add our salt. And that is all the dry ingredients. Sugar is technically a wet ingredient. And now we're gonna add our wet ingredients to the mixer. So 2 cups of white sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that together. I'll take this time to mix in the egg. 1 cup of coffee. The next ingredient is buttermilk, which I don't have, so I'm gonna go ahead and just add some lemon juice and milk. And I put the lemon juice in first so that I would have room to add the milk. Probably should let that sit for a minute, but I'm just gonna go ahead and add it. Now we're gonna add some vanilla and 1/2 cup of oil. You're probably wondering, I thought you said this was a chocolate cake. It is, I almost forgot the cocoa powder. So the last ingredient is 3/4 cup of cocoa powder. Probably should have sifted that. Oh well. And that's our cake. We just have to get that into our baking pie pans, cake pans. Get this baking, and we do have the outside decoration we need to make, but we'll do that later after we get going on our turkey. Oh wow, this looks beautiful. I'm gonna scrape the sides and then let it go a little bit longer. This smells just like the best chocolate cake. Oh my goodness. So we're going to evenly pour it between these 2. And because these are bigger cake pans, they're not gonna bake for quite as long. The recipe says 40 minutes, but I'm thinking probably I will set a timer for 30 and we'll check it at 30. Now that the cakes are in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my little bit of my baking mess here. That was the first thing I want to get started with because I knew that that was going to take the absolute longest. The rest of the recipes are really straightforward, even though the stuffed turkey seems kind of complicated. I don't think it's going to be. I think the biggest thing that's going to be complicated about it is I had to buy a bone-in turkey because that's all they had at the store. And so we're gonna have to debone it, but I don't think that's gonna be too hard. Unfortunately, my dishwasher has about 20 minutes left on it, so I can't get my dishes into my dishwasher, but I'll take care of that in just a minute. So let me just get this mess tidied up, and then we'll get moving on the turkey. After tidying the kitchen, I took a second to have a few sips of coffee and reread my recipes to make sure I know what I'm doing. And the turkey's gonna come together really quickly. And I realized after reading the frosting portion of the cake recipe that we need this to cool. So instead of get going on the turkey, we're gonna get going on the frosting. So I just put in here it's actually a fudge, kind of like a fudge frosting we're making. I just put in here, not two, did I say two? 4 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna let this melt. And then while that's melting, I've got some chocolate here. We're gonna make the frosting or fudge, whatever you wanna call it, right in this pot. I'm a little intimidated by this portion of the recipe. This is unsweet chocolate because we will be adding quite a bit of sweetness to it. While I was waiting for this butter to melt, I measured out the other ingredients we need, and it says we need to put the butter up the side of the pot, and once that's melted, we're gonna add, I'm gonna turn this down lower, corn syrup, chocolate, and we're gonna melt all of that in here. That's why I wanted to turn the stove down because I don't want my chocolate to burn. To me, it's a little odd you would add the chocolate before you're gonna boil this, but I'm following the recipe the way it says. Now we're gonna add our sugar, and I forgot to measure out the cream. I'm gonna take this off the heat real quick. So to that, I'm gonna add, wow, this is really thick cream. 1 cup of cream. It says 1 to 1.5 cups of cream, depending on what we want to do with this. If we're going to drizzle it over the cake or frost the cake, which I think I want to frost the cake. So then it says to use 1 cup instead of 1.5. Oh, that's my timer for the cake. And those feel done. I'm glad I didn't bake those for the full 40 minutes. I'm gonna double check with the toothpick. So the interesting thing about this is that this needs to come up to 228 degrees, I think, 200 and something. That's why we have a candy thermometer in there. I have never boiled chocolate like this before, so it's kind of interesting. 220 to 224 degrees. Once it reaches that temperature, the frosting or fudge is done. Okay, this is done. And I'm gonna take it off the heat. It smells divine. We'll get that out of there. And it says we need to put it into a different dish so that it can cool. I will use this pot for something else today, so I want to get all the chocolate out and then I can rinse it really easily before it cools and it's hard to clean. We have all the components of our cake officially done now. The cheesecake has another about 30 minutes or so before it'll be done. I need to run out to the garden to grab some fresh herbs, but I thought we would try to, oh, that's stuck. Get these cakes out of these pans before I do that. Oh, perfect. Look at this. Beautiful. Look at that. I believe the cheesecake is done because when I jiggle it, it just jiggles a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the oven off. Some cheesecake recipes say you need to have the cheesecake cool in the oven with the door open. This recipe does not state what to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it out carefully. I think I'm gonna kind of meet in the middle and I'm gonna let it cool in the bain-marie for a little bit before I take the cheesecake out of the hot water. That helps prevent cracking, which it's already starting to crack. And it's okay if it cracks a little bit because it's gonna have a layer of cake on the top of it and it's gonna be frosted with our fudge. Now I'm gonna run out into the garden and grab some fresh herbs for the 2 vegetable sides that we have and for our main dish. We have not been into the garden in a while and I wanted to show you a couple things. One, we've had many frost already and look at these snapdragons. They still look so incredibly beautiful. They're not gonna flower, but look how green. Oh wait, that looks like, what am I talking about? There's actually flowers on these snapdragons. How cool is that? Oh goodness, okay, it looks like I'm gonna have to come out here and do some maintenance. This bed is coming up. I need to reattach the weed barrier. I'll do that later today. But let's get some parsley. Look how beautiful this is. We need thyme too. The kale is still looking really good. There's some yellowing on the bottom leaves, but this kale right here is so sweet and beautiful and it's still growing. So that's incredible. The purple kale looks great as well. I've been able to harvest quite a few green onions from this bed, and this bed is looking so good. We've been able to harvest lettuce as much as we want, even after a bunch of frosts with no protection. This is cauliflower. I don't see, looks like there's a tiny head in there. More lettuce and cilantro. I've been able to harvest as much cilantro as I have been wanting out of this bed. The cabbage is growing too. I want to experiment more next year with using cover crops instead of the fabric going into the winter, especially ones that we can eat, because that lettuce has done fantastic, the cilantro has done fantastic. And so maybe next year when I rip something out for the season, if it's done, instead of covering it with fabric, cover it with spinach or lettuce. Even if I don't plan to eat all of it, that might be a nice way to cover the garden instead of fabric. Just some of my winter thoughts. I have been so inspired by how well this last year's garden has done that I've been coming up with tons of ideas for next year's garden, and I cannot wait. But now I'm gonna go ahead and grab the turkey, and we are gonna prep the turkey for tonight's dinner. I wanted to get the cheesecake out to cool, and when I took this out, there was probably a 1/4 inch of water in the bottom of this foil, which I've never had happen before. So I don't know if there was a hole in my foil or when it was boiling, it was going into here, but I'm really hoping that it's not soggy at the bottom. So we'll see. It looks really beautiful. It's jiggling nicely. So time will tell. If anything, we have some good chocolate cake. Friend, I have been to the store and back. The turkey that I purchased at the store 3 days ago, when I opened it and deboned it, I took the turkey breasts off the bones. It was not good. I was trying to talk myself into thinking that it was fine, and My gut feeling tells me that something happened and that turkey is no longer fresh. So I went to the store, and the only turkey options they had at the store were frozen turkeys. And if we want to have dinner tonight, frozen turkey is not going to work. So I went back and forth. I thought I could buy chicken breast and we could substitute chicken breast, or I could maybe do a pork loin and we could do a stuffed pork loin. And I figured, let's just do chicken. So I just went and grabbed some fresh chicken at the store. I have chicken in my deep freeze, but it's completely frozen. And if we want to have dinner tonight, I thought, let's just go get some fresh chicken breasts from the store. So that's what I did. And what I'm doing here is I am butterflying them open so that we can stuff them. I'm going to use the same recipe that I would use for the turkey because I think it will be good with chicken too. So all I'm going to do to butterfly these chicken breasts is cut them in half and open it up and just slice it in half, but not cut all the way through. Just like that. And now what I'm going to do is put them in a Ziploc bag, and I want to make them a little bit more even. And so I've got a meat tenderizer. Finding out my turkey was bad was pretty disappointing. But on the other hand, we've got some good news here. This cheesecake, even though there was some water in the foil, looks so beautiful. Look at how beautiful it is. So I'm gonna get this in the fridge so it can firm up nicely. And that way, as soon as it cools, we can assemble our cake. So I'm just grabbing the different things we need for the filling for our chicken. Now we're making stuffed chicken. For the filling, we're gonna start with some cream cheese, which I softened in the microwave for about 10 seconds. And we're going to get some spinach chopped. This is fresh spinach, that's what the recipe calls for. I'm sure if all you have is frozen, that would work too. Just thaw it and drain out any excess moisture. I'm gonna get that chopped. I think I'm gonna make the seasoning portion for the stuffing real quick here. So we're gonna start with some black pepper, salt, smoked paprika, and I'm kind of just eyeballing everything ingredients-wise, garlic, and I'm gonna add something to this stuffed recipe that's not in the recipe. A little bit of red pepper flakes, not too many of those. Our spinach, and then some fresh parsley. I have both Italian flat leaf and then a curly style parsley. They both taste almost exactly the same, but I kind of like using both. So I'm gonna get these chopped. And I'm gonna chop this way finer than I chopped the spinach. One thing I'm gonna add this recipe does not call for, but I happen to have it, and I think it would be good, would be some finely diced shallots. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get all this mixed together. I thought it would be easier to mix it if the cream cheese was a little bit on the softer side. That's why I popped it in the microwave for a few seconds. And we're just gonna get this mixed together and then we can stuff our chicken. This smells incredible. So it was easy as that, is getting the chicken prepped, this done, and now we can assemble our main course. I have 4 chicken breasts that I prepped, and I'm gonna go ahead and season them a little bit before we put the filling on. So that's a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. So I need to make sure I evenly distribute this filling between these 4 different chicken breasts. This is probably my largest chicken breast here, and then I've got a really small one. I'm going to just spread the filling mixture out. And then I have an ingredient here that the recipe does not call for, but I thought, why not add it since I had it thawed in my fridge? And that is going to be a couple pieces of bacon wrapped around each one of these chicken breasts. These look absolutely beautiful. I'm going to transfer these chicken breasts to this skillet.
The original skillet that I had wasn't going to fit all 4 of my chicken breasts, so I went ahead and grabbed my roaster pan, and we're going to use that to cook our chicken. Now, I am very glad I decided to put the bacon around the chicken because it added a nice color to the chicken breast when they baked. And, you know, if you're going to make a holiday meal, a little bit of bacon kind of makes it feel a little bit more special. So now that we have our main course set and ready to go into the oven, I thought it would be good to go ahead and prep the 2 sides that we're going to have. So we're going to have roasted Parmesan carrots, and these are carrots from the garden. And I'm going to go ahead and just peel them, wash them, and then we're going to cut them in kind of like match sticks. And then I'll show you how we're going to season them and roast them. Once we get the carrots done, then we're going to go ahead and peel some potatoes. I did decide to go ahead and make mashed potatoes for 2 reasons. We are roasting the carrots, and so I thought it would be good to have a little bit of a different texture with the potatoes. Instead of having roast carrots and roast potatoes, we're going to have roast carrots and then mashed potatoes so that there's something soft with the crunchy carrot and then the creaminess of the chicken. So that's what my thought was there. Plus, one of Josh and I's favorite things to do with leftover mashed potatoes is to turn them into potato cakes, and we haven't had those since last winter. And so I was thinking if I made mashed potatoes for dinner tonight, then we could use the leftover chicken for tomorrow's dinner, but instead of having the dinner be exactly the same, I could take those leftover mashed potatoes and turn them into potato cakes, which is exactly what I did, and it was so delicious. I'm going to go ahead and compost my potato peels and my carrot peels. You can save carrot peels and use them when you make broth, but I have enough that they can just go ahead and be composted. And then here are the russet potatoes from the garden as well. I definitely can tell that my potatoes are needing to be used up. So potatoes are going to be on the menu for the foreseeable future.
I've been going back and forth whether I'm going to make mashed potatoes or Hasselback potatoes. And I think I'm going to do mashed potatoes because I think it would be good once we cut our stuffed chicken to kind of rest on a soft mashed potato. And I've got a fantastic recipe for this. It is Gordon Ramsay's garlic Parmesan mashed potatoes. And we'll have the roasted carrots. So the carrots and the potatoes will have some contrast instead of 2 roasted vegetables. Plus I'll need the oven space for the chicken and the carrots. So I've got all of my veggies peeled and prepped and ready to go. So I do need to chop these down a little bit smaller. And you know, yeah, I'll use that one. I was trying to decide if I was going to use my big Dutch oven or if I was gonna grab my other pot, but the Gordon Ramsay mashed potatoes, you need to warm the cream and the butter and the garlic and all that first. And so I'll use my little pot for that. So we're gonna get these in here. I'm just putting these into, I don't know, maybe a inch cube or so, nothing super precise, just so that when it comes to the cook time, it'll take a little less time. And anytime I make mashed potatoes, I always start with cold water, and then we're gonna get going on the Parmesan carrots now. So I'm gonna get some water on these potatoes just so that they don't oxidize and turn gray on us. So for these carrots, we want them to have a flat surface. So they're gonna get cut in half. I don't want them to be too big, so I think I'm gonna do matchsticks like that. We'll get those into a bowl.
Josh is the one who actually found the garlic mashed potato recipe from Gordon Ramsay. He makes me a Valentine's Day dinner usually on Valentine's Day. And one of his best dinners I think he ever made me is he made me steak with green beans and these garlic mashed potatoes. And ever since he made those garlic mashed potatoes, they've kind of been my go-to mashed potato because they have garlic and cream and butter and Parmesan cheese. And it really is the Parmesan cheese that takes the mashed potatoes over the top and makes them delicious. So it pairs really well with these roast carrots that we are going to make as well, because these roast carrots are going to have Parmesan cheese as well as the potatoes.
Now we can go ahead and season our carrots. I'm going to put some garlic infused olive oil on there, and then some smoked paprika, garlic powder as well. A little bit of contrast from the sweetness of the carrots with red pepper flake, pepper, and salt. So this here, what we're gonna do next is what's gonna make these carrots super special. I'm just putting some parchment paper down on a cookie sheet. And I have grated Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna start with half this cookie sheet first, because I don't know how much we're gonna need. And then I'm gonna lay each carrot cut side down on the Parmesan cheese. We're gonna get the component for the mashed potatoes going. I'm gonna first melt some butter and garlic. This is some homemade garlic butter. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cut a couple tablespoons off. It is frozen, has fresh garlic from the garden and butter. This is a really high quality butter that is just absolutely delicious. We're gonna melt that. I'm gonna let this melt and saute just a little bit, just to slightly cook that garlic. Our butter is starting to melt. I'm gonna get out the different things we need for the cake. We've got our chocolate fudge that is nice and thick now, and our cheesecake that is nice and cooled and firm. So we've got our 3 components for our cake. And I think that butter, I'm gonna go ahead and add the next ingredient. Some of that butter is starting to brown, and I don't want my garlic to burn, so even though that butter is not all the way melted, I'm gonna heat up some cream for the potatoes. That's probably not quite enough. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of half and half, and I'm gonna let that warm up and finish cooking the garlic while that butter continues to melt. And I'm gonna turn this heat way down. So here's what our fudge looks like. It's been in the refrigerator and it's nice and thick, but still spreadable. I'm gonna put just a little bit on the bottom of the cake stand so that our cake doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm gonna tuck parchment. So when we frost it, I can just pull these away and it will be nice and have a clean edge. Now the recipe does not state to put any frosting between the layers. You'll see there was a little bit of moisture on there, but not too bad. Pull that off. Look at how beautiful that is. And you know what? This cake fits perfectly. You know, I thought I put it marker side down. That fits absolutely perfectly. I hope there's enough frosting to put on this whole thing. Once I put it on, I can't go back. Trying to get a thin layer on first, and then I'll go back and add more, but I want to try to get a little bit on the whole thing first. It's almost dinner time. So I'm gonna preheat this oven to 400 degrees, and I'm gonna preheat this oven to 400 degrees. And I'm gonna go ahead and get the potatoes cooking. So now what I'm gonna do is just plop the rest of this frosting on the cake, and then I'll go back and make it pretty. This frosting consistency is beautiful. I was really wondering what it was. It's not really frosting, it's fudge. What it was going to be like, and it's silky and really nice to work with. I'm going for the rustic look, so it doesn't have to be, oh no! It doesn't have to be perfect. Should probably grab my offset spatula. Shoot, I'll have to just do a little bit of cosmetic surgery there. No big deal. We'll pull this side off. There we go. I am so happy with how that turned out. So now we can actually cook the carrots and the chicken. I'm going off the recipe for the stuffed turkey breast, which says it can go anywhere from 15 to 35 minutes, because it really just depends on the size of the turkey breast, in our case chicken breast, and it needs to hit an internal temperature of 165. So I'm gonna put it in there for, I can't imagine it would only take 15 minutes. I'm gonna start the timer at 15, but we'll check it at 15. But I'm thinking it's probably gonna take 20 to 25 minutes. Because I know these carrots are gonna at least take 20 minutes too. So I have both ovens ready to go. We've got our potatoes cooking, our carrots cooking, our chicken cooking, and our dessert is done. I think it turned out so incredibly beautiful. So we're just going, you know what I think I'm gonna do real quick? Let me chop up some parsley, because I'm gonna put some parsley on the top. The carrots are done and the potatoes are almost ready to be mashed as well. I'm gonna get this oven off. Chicken's not quite done. Look at these beautiful carrots. So the area where the cheese is just on the platter is a little bit dark, but where the cheese and the carrot meet, oh my goodness, it looks incredible. So we're gonna get these on the serving platter because we're kind of celebrating our own little holiday. I will go ahead and get it onto a pretty platter. Ah. Oh my goodness, those are not too dark. They might look a little darker for you, but for me, they look absolutely divine. I'm gonna get a little bit of fresh parsley on here. It's gonna add some nice brightness. I wanna give one of these a taste real quick. I have the stove off and I drained these potatoes. They're nice and soft. I'm just gonna use a potato masher. I'm reheating my cream and garlic because they were not quite warm anymore because I had started that earlier today. Now I'm gonna get some Parmesan cheese in there. We're gonna start with that and I'll give it a taste test. That and the garlic is what brings these potatoes over the top. Okay, my cream and garlic is done. I'm gonna start with half that because I don't have a ton of potatoes in here. And I like a little bit of a chunkier potato, so I like a potato masher, but if you like something a little thinner, you could run these through a ricer. I think I'm gonna add the rest of that. Maybe that was too much. I just checked the internal temperature of the biggest one. We're at 155. So what I'm gonna do is turn the oven off and turn it on broil on high, or yeah, let's do high. So the bacon can get crispy, because right now it's still a little soft and we want crispy bacon on the top of our chicken. If I was to wait until the internal temperature was up to 165 and then I turned it on broil and cooked it for another 5 or 6 minutes, we would way overcook our chicken breast. So this way, hopefully, we don't overcook it. And these mashed potatoes, I tasted them and they taste incredible. So I'm glad I went with mashed potatoes and the roast carrots instead of the Hasselback potatoes. I think that this is a little bit more of a cohesive dinner. Josh is so excited about dinner. He keeps asking when he can eat because it smells incredible. Look at that. This needs to rest for a good 15-20 minutes before we can cut into it so that all the juices can go back into the chicken and it just can be so yummy. I'm just gonna plate these up. So here is our incredible dinner we've been working towards, our holiday dinner for 2, except it's really for 4 because I have a hard time cooking for 2. The awesome thing, though, is that I will not have to cook tomorrow. So we were able to prep a wonderful dinner plus food for the following couple days. And there is our dinner. I'm just gonna take a little piece off the end here and give it a taste test with a little bit of that filling mixture from the chicken and maybe a little bit of mashed potato. That chicken is so delicious. I haven't made stuffed chicken. I don't know if I've ever made stuffed chicken. I think I've done it maybe one other time. I'm glad I wrapped the chicken in bacon because aesthetically, I think it's a lot more pleasing probably. But this, my friend, is a decadent and beautiful dinner worthy of our little family holiday. So thank you for hanging out with me in the kitchen as we created this wonderful meal that we are going to be able to eat on for a few days, and I'm really excited about it. Sounds like my dog wants to go out. I will show you what that cake looks like when we cut into it. We will have that probably for, well, we will have it for dessert tonight with a cup of coffee. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. If you want to watch some of my other videos, I can pop some other videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.